Gautama Siddhartha was one of humanity's wisest teachers. He lived in the middle of the 6th century BC in the northern plains of India. He taught a message of compassion and universal love. The message spread to all corners of Asia and shaped the culture of a continent. It continues till today as one of the great religions of the world with millions of followers, Buddhism. Gautama Siddhartha was the son of Suddhodana, the ruler of Kapilavastu in present-day Uttar Pradesh in India. He was born nearby in a grove of sal trees in Lumbini, which is in present-day Nepal. Ashoka, the great Indian emperor of the 3rd century BC, erected a pillar at Lumbini to commemorate this sacred site. For 6 years, Gautama, and one day, under a peepal tree in the village of Uruvela, next to the Niranjana river, Gautama sat down to meditate. Finally, his mind dispelled all the darkness of confusion. He fully realized the truth of the cause of suffering in the world. He had seen the path towards happiness. He was now a Buddha, an enlightened one. At Sarnath near Varanasi, the Buddha delivered his first sermon to his 5 former companions. This event is known as the Dharma Chakra Pravartan, or the setting into motion of the wheel of law. The Buddha wandered ceaselessly from place to place in present-day Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. He taught Dharma to all, without any distinctions. At the age of 80, Gautama Buddha headed to Kushinagara in present-day Uttar Pradesh. There he told his close disciple, Ananda, that his end had come. Ananda was miserable and cried bitterly. The Buddha asked him not to grieve the loss of his master's transitory self. He said, Dharma is your refuge. Over the centuries, thousands of stupas were made by the followers of the Buddha. The stupa became a profound symbol of liberation from the bindings of the material world. The greatest surviving Buddhist stupa of the BC period is on top of a hill at Sanchi in central India. It is likely that it would have enshrined the relics of the Buddha. In the meantime, great caves were being carved out of the hills of the Ghats in western India. Deep within the heart of rock, the seeker was provided a haven of peace, far from the noise and clamor of the material world. Over a period of about 1,000 years, more than 800 Buddhist caves were hewn out of the heart of the rock. The first phase of prolific excavation was from the 2nd century BC till the 3rd century AD. The fertile valley of the Krishna River was the cradle of civilization in the eastern Deccan. This area became one of the greatest centers of Buddhism, and over 140 early Buddhist sites have been found in this region. Indeed, this river valley is a vast land of stupas and Buddhist caves. In the first millennium, great centers of Buddhist study had come up in Bihar. These had the bountiful support of Buddhist and Hindu kings, and they developed into vast monastic universities. The greatest of these was at Nalanda. It was a hub of learning where pilgrims and scholars came from all corners of Asia. In the first millennium, Chinese pilgrims traveled by sea and by land to the holy places of Buddhism in India. In the 8th and 9th centuries, magnificent Buddhist monuments were constructed in Java. The Borobudur Stupa was built by the Shailendra kings in this period. It is one of the world's most magnificent Buddhist monuments. It is the tallest stupa standing in the world. There are many thousands of feet of very fine relief, which we see as we climb upwards and go around the stupa. The bottom level presents the life of passions in the world, the Kama Dhatu. The next level presents the law of action and reward, the Karma Dhatu. Rising upwards, numerous reliefs depict the Rupa Dhatu, the life and stories of the Buddha. He is the Rupa, the personification of the potential for enlightenment within us. Beyond that level come the levels of the final truth, which is formless, Arupa Dhatu. Here there are no distractions of the illusory forms of Maya, and all that we see is the stupa. This is the final truth in all Buddhist thought, beyond all forms. From the 13th to the mid-14th century, one of the great Buddhist centers of the world was at Sukhothai in Thailand. Some of the most graceful Buddhist art was created here, in a style which is famous till today. The lines of the Sukhothai Buddha figures have a vivid life of their own. The surfaces are smooth and gently curving. The peaceful expressions are sublime. King U Thong founded a new capital in the mid-14th century at a location which is 85 kilometers north of present-day Bangkok. It was named Ayutthaya, after the city of Ayodhya, the birthplace of Rama in India. In fact, the King of Thailand personifies ideal virtues as depicted in the character of Rama. His good and moral actions are believed to create peace and prosperity in the country. Many impressive structures survive at Ayutthaya, which show the glorious Buddhist history of this site. Great Buddhist monasteries here were centers of philosophy, literature, and the fine arts. Wat Mahatat was set up as the holy center of the capital city by the king Burung Rajathiraj I. This grand complex was also the home of the supreme Buddhist patriarch at the time. Since the 1780s, numerous temples have been made and renovated in Bangkok. In Thailand, it is the divine responsibility of the king to maintain the Buddhist religion. The temple of the reclining Buddha, the Wat Po, is one of the Bangkok temples dating back to the 17th century. King Rama I expanded the temple when Bangkok was established as the capital of Thailand. The centerpiece of the Wat Po is the huge statue of the reclining Buddha, almost 50 meters in length. The most famous of the Bangkok temples is the Temple of the Emerald Buddha, or Wat Phra Kyo. The temple was built from 1782 to 1784 during the reign of King Rama I to house the Emerald Buddha. Thailand continues the gentle traditions of Buddhism. The lives of the people are permeated by the desire for the spiritual search. Till today, in the midst of the modern world, the spirit of compassion of the Buddha's message continues in this land. Myanmar was a great crucible of Buddhist influences and art, which came to it over the centuries. At the end of the first millennium, Myanmar had a deep and direct relationship with the center of Buddhist philosophy at Bodh Gaya in India. In fact, in the 11th century, the king of Myanmar restored the Mahabodhi temple at Bodh Gaya at his own expense. He also made replicas of the Mahabodhi temple at his own capital of Bagan. Simultaneously, in the 11th century, King Anavrata declared Theravada Buddhism to be the state religion. To proclaim his deep reverence, he made thousands of pagodas at Pagan. It is one of the most glorious Buddhist sites of Asia. Inside the pagodas are paintings and beautiful Buddhas made from the 11th to the 18th centuries. At Yangon is the grand Shwedagon Pagoda, almost 100 meters high. It is the most sacred pagoda in Myanmar and enshrines the relics of the past 4 Buddhas. Myanmar is a deeply religious country. Pagodas and monasteries have been the traditional places of worship and education here. The country has almost 500,000 monks and nuns of the Theravada Buddhist tradition. Cambodia is another land which has a great history of sacred art and monuments. The Hindu and Buddhist sculptures of Cambodia, from the 6th to the 8th centuries AD, are unrivaled for their sheer beauty and excellence. While the kings primarily worshipped Hindu deities, much Buddhist art was also created. In the 13th century, King Jayavarman VII built the greatest Buddhist complex in Cambodia at his capital, Angkor Thom. The face towers of Angkor Thom have become a universally recognized symbol for Angkor. The faces look in the 4 directions, symbolizing the universal benevolence of the Bodhisattva, Lokeshvara. The Bayon, at the center of Angkor Thom, is the king's own sacred temple mountain. It is one of the most magnificent monuments of Buddhism. South and central Vietnam have many Hindu temples and some Buddhist temples. These were made between the 7th and 13th centuries. A Buddhist monastery complex was built at Dong Duong in the 9th century. This must have been a most impressive center of Buddhist worship in the time. The museum at Da Nang in central Vietnam has numerous sculptures which show a glorious history of art. In the center of the peninsula of Southeast Asia is the country of Laos. The people here are deeply religious, and Theravada Buddhism is the basis of their culture. Monks are deeply venerated, and there are almost 5,000 temples. Most men in Laos live for some part of their lives in the monasteries to imbibe Buddhist ethics and a compassionate vision of the world. Laos is a sacred land, where ancient traditions, such as the daily giving of alms to monks, continue till today. Monks are those who have renounced the material comforts and other attractions of the world. Society believes it to be its responsibility to look after the well-being of these renouncers who have given up the ways of the world. The golden Tat Luang Stupa is a national symbol of Laos. It was originally built in 1566 and was restored in 1953. The stupa is 45 meters high and is believed to contain a holy relic of the Buddha. Buddhism has a great vision of the eternal harmony of the world. This faith, with its message of compassion, spread far and wide and shaped the culture of a continent. A culture of peace and gentleness, which continues even in the midst of the materialistic world of today.